What is going on, everybody? You are back on another edition of Ballin Over Beers, a fantasy and betting show. This is the DFS version. The betting version is already out there or will be out there. Make sure you're checking that out as well. Make sure you're also smashing the like button. Make sure you're subscribing so when those shows come up, you know exactly when they're out. Make sure in the comments you are leaving us who your favorite stack of the week is, because I want to know from you guys who you think the best plays, who you think the best stack is this week. I am joined, as always, by my guys, James Fitch, AK Howe, and it's a very special edition of this show because it is Mr. AK Howe's birthday. Happy birthday, buddy.
Thank you.
Cheers.
How's your birthday going?
Good. I just got done reading a chapter of The Giver. It's part of Aaron Rodgers' book club. I highly recommend it.
This is a show that does not
endorse reading. Yes.
It does not endorse reading at all. So, no, Akey's the reader of the group. Good for you, buddy.
140 characters. 140 characters or less for this guy.
You're not a thread guy?
Same.
Not a thread guy.
No, keep it to 140 or under. Same with emails. If you send me an email more than like 3 sentences, 100% chance I don't read it right away.
Deleted.
Deleted. James, what's up, dude?
Not too much, man. Ready to forget about week 4 DFS. Took a bath, like a lot of people, it seems. And questioning whether or not I want to play ever again. I need you to bring me back in.
It's like drinking, right? So you have those nights that you just go out and it's just a real shit show, and you wake up the next day and you're like, I am never drinking again. And then by like Wednesday, you're like, I think I might want a beer, and then you just you jump right in.
Yeah,
so,
Brandon.
That's like DFS every weekend.
If we're comparing DFS to alcohol, then your Jimmy G stack is like doing shots of 151 because that was absolute trash.
He got hurt. If he was in the game, he's the one throwing the 76-yard touchdown to freaking.
I told you would get mad when you got cucked by Trey Lance, and that's what happened.
A straight cuck job from Trey. Oh, dude.
I got Brandon Ayuk and Odell. So.
Oh, dude, Ayuk, Odell. I liked Delvin Cook, and they played him. Usually when he comes off an injury and he plays, they give him the ball 25 times. No, just 9 carries. Like
I told you, Sam Darnold, DJ Moore, the Derrick Henry bring back.
That was a good stack. All right, we're gonna figure this week out though. No more freaking Jimmy Garoppolo bullshit. I'll tell you that much. All right, let's start. Thank you. Yeah, I'll try not to mention any stupid things on the show. All right, let's talk quarterbacks. We're gonna jump right into it. Kyler Murray is your most expensive guy at 8,000, and then the only other 3 guys above 7 are Jalen Hurts at 7, Rodgers at 71, Brady at 74. James, what are you thinking in this range? You like any of these guys?
I don't know that I'm looking to pay up in either cash or tournament. There are a lot of guys in that $7,000 high $6,000 range that I like more, I think. Kyler Murray's an interesting guy that I may look to try to build some lineups around, but I think I'm going to be spending up other places this week.
AK, what about you in this price range? Because I think I do have some interest in Murray. His thing, right, like lately, where it used to be just, all right, stack Murray with Nuke, and then you're good to go. He's really been spreading the ball out quite a bit this year. That makes it almost kind of difficult to find a stack.
I brought that up last week. Sorry. I don't know who to pair with him. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, AK.
I was just going to say he's someone that if you're playing like a 20 max enter, if you use 6 or 7 lineups just around Murray and just build a couple same lineups but change out a couple of his receivers here and there, you're going to hit one of them. So you're kind of like, you got to build more than 1 or 2 lineups around Murray to win money, in my opinion.
Do you think it's even viable to do a naked Murray? Because that doesn't seem because like if you don't have the correlation there, like last week you wanted like him and AJ Green because Green was like 5 for like 120 and at least a touchdown, where you want that correlation. And with Green's price, you get savings and the low discount of ownership, I think.
I mean, I think it all comes down to contest selection. I mean, if you're doing a single entry, I think it's worth throwing Kyler in, and then for your low throwaway player, have a Cardinal. At worst, you just have a snowflake. But if it hits, you have a huge leg up on a lot of that competition.
I wouldn't play him naked, and I think that's because if he's hitting his ceiling, there are guys that are helping him get there.
Yep.
Otherwise, the only way that pays off to me is if he goes for 3 rushing touchdowns, which is doable. I feel like he's had games like that, but this year he's not getting those carries at the goal line. It's James Conner.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't think I would play him naked. I just think at that price, I think Justin Fields is a guy you consider doing that with, somebody that's low price that he could throw for 150, but have those 2 rushing touchdowns. And if he's only throwing for 150, there aren't guys that are helping him reach his ceiling.
The playing Kyler to me is a lot like if you built a lineup around Josh Allen. You don't need to stack them with their top guy because they spread the ball around and they throw the ball so much. So if you just throw in, an AJ Green or Christian Kirk or Rolando Moore, it's like throwing in, a lineup with Beasley and a lineup with Sanders for Josh Allen. If he's hitting a ceiling, one of those guys is going to have a big game.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Murray's a great cash play because you don't have to worry about that correlation. You don't have to worry about that stack. You just put him in best player and forget about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like that. If we keep going down, I know we talked that there are some interesting guys in the $6,000 range. The range goes from Daniel Jones at 6,000 all the way up to Dak Prescott at 69. And right away, there's 3 names that I like, and it's Dak Prescott at $6,900, Sam Darnold at $6,600, and Daniel Jones a little bit at $6,000. AK, I know you loved Darnold last week. Do you like him again this week?
I like him, but at 6,600, I think you get better value with someone like Joe Burrow, especially if Mixon's not playing and Higgins is. Alexander, I forgot his first name.
Right.
Alexander's, however you pronounce it, is not playing for Green Bay. So I think it's going to open up a lot of the receivers for Cincinnati, and Green Bay is going to be scoring points. So I think it's going to be a high scoring game, and 6,100 for Burrow, I think, is a pretty good steal.
Burrow is interesting. I hadn't really thought about Burrow too much, but that is interesting. James, what about you in this range?
Yeah, I think Darnold's getting a little pricey. I have this feeling that he may come back down to earth at some point. I do like Kirk Cousins at 6,500. I think they're going to be motivated to come off a 7-point stinker to just kind of light up a Detroit defense that isn't going to be very good. So I'm going to look at Kirk Cousins stacks with maybe like a DeAndre Swift bring back. Other than that, I do like Dak. Daniel Jones is intriguing to me, but I think if I'm picking a guy in that game, I'm probably going to go with Dak. Again, Daniel Jones has been putting up numbers, but he's just not a reliable quarterback to me. I just don't trust him.
Yeah, I like the call on both Cousins and Dak. They're 2 guys that have 2 implied team totals that are extremely high. Dak has the highest on the board with almost 30 points. And Cousins is right there with him, just barely behind him. So
why is Dak always priced so low?
I don't understand it. Like even like his receivers too. If you look at Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, they're not that expensive either. So I don't know. I don't know if it's they see like the rushing that that Dallas had last week with Zeke, and if they think that, and like I don't even mind stacking Dak with Zeke. If you go Zeke's Dak and one of the receivers. If you want to do, a double, I think that's an interesting way to get a little bit different if people are trying to jam in both the receivers in them, because I think they're going to be able to run the ball still too. But I don't think that kills the Cowboys' floor because they score so many points, right? And they run so many plays, and they're such a high scoring team. So I like all the pieces in the Cowboys' offense really this week, especially Dak, Zeke, and the receivers. So I'm good with that. Keep going down. $5,900 and below. It starts with Tyler Hennike. AK, I know we kind of texted earlier in the week, and we're like, is it gross that we're looking at Trevor Lawrence's stack with the Jags? Are you still thinking that way, or have you moved on to potentially somebody else?
I still like Trevor Lawrence. He has a sneaky rushing upside that I don't think a lot of people think about. But everything going on with Urban and the team kind of worries me right now. I think the game's either going to be a complete clusterfuck for them and they're going to score 0 points, or they're going to come out and score 35. So it's a big roll of the dice right now with everything going on with old skipping the flight and dancing with college chicks, Urban.
What a stud! Just letting young chicks grind on him as his wife watches his grandkids in the hotel room.
You can get a pretty cheap stack with him and Visca with the Derrick Henry bring back.
That's what I was looking at high in this game, is that exact play. So
well, and the thing is too, is the Titans defense is horrible. Like,
right,
they're one of the worst in the NFL. They can't rush the passer. They don't have good corners. The pace for the Jags offense is extremely high. They're top 5 in the NFL. Like, they're going to throw the ball. Visca's a good deep target, especially with DJ Chark being out. He's only $4,800. I don't know. I still like that stack as a awful low, cheap price. And the thing with it is, I think a lot of the ownership, and we were talking about this before we jumped on, is going to be if Trey Lance starts and Justin Fields. Those guys are both down here in the $5,000 range, James. And I think that if you go somewhere else, you could definitely differentiate yourself and gain quite a bit of leverage, I think, in this range.
yeah. The last thing I was going to say about Trevor Lawrence is, in the last 3 weeks, he's had 84 rushing yards and a touchdown. So you're getting, a 3-4 point floor with him right there with the rushing, which is nice to have.
No doubt. James, what are your thoughts on Fields, Lance, pivoting to Lawrence? What's your thoughts there?
I would go Lawrence of those 3 guys. I'm not big on Fields or Lance. I'm not even sure Lance is going to play this week at this point. It sounds like Jimmy G didn't get hurt as bad as he thought initially. And I don't know. I just don't trust Matt Nagy or Bob Laser or whatever the hell his name is. Whoever's calling plays there, I don't trust them. I don't trust the Bears offense. Damien Williams is probably the only guy I would think about playing from that team. I think he's going to be the free square this week, right?
I think everybody's going to play him. That's for sure. I don't know how I feel about him, to be honest with you, because I think he's going to be so chalky. So I don't know. All right. What if you had to give your 3 favorite quarterbacks of any price, James? Who you got?
I'm going to go with Hurts, Dak, and probably Cousins, I think.
AK?
I'm going to go with Burrow, Lawrence, and a very cheap, sneaky play in Mac Jones.
Mac Jones, against Houston, you think they'll come out and just chuck it around?
I think the Texans are really bad, and at that price, he doesn't really have to do much to exceed his price, and you got cheap stacking options with some of his receivers and tight ends there.
So I think Damien Harris is a guy to look at in that game at 5,500. I think he could be a sneaky play.
Yeah,
that's where I was going with it. I like Harris more than I like a Jones stack. I like Kyler. I think I'm going to play Kyler, Dak, and then I got to decide. Ryan Tannehill is the other one that I was kind of looking at. If like AJ Brown and Julio come back, might gain leverage on all the people that want to play Derrick Henry against this Jags defense. Jags are pretty bad. I don't know, but maybe Trevor Lawrence as well. So somewhere in those 3 ranges, I would say. Let's take a look at those running backs that we were just talking about. And of course, Mr. Derrick Henry is up top at 9,000, the only guy in that $9,000 range. And then the next 3 are Delvin Cook at 84, Camaro at 86, McCaffrey at 87. Those are your players all above $8,000. I think Henry is the obvious play here because of the defense that we're going against the Jags. We've been talking about that. James, Camaro, we talked a little bit on our betting show. Camaro is just not getting the targets like he normally does, right? Can you go to him at this price if he's not catching passes?
No, I probably won't play him. I haven't played him yet this year. I haven't seen an upside in that offense. Like they're not explosive. They're not scoring points. He's not getting the targets, or he's not getting as many targets usually. Last week was probably an outlier. I don't think we're going to see that happen again, but I don't know. There are just so many good running backs that are so much cheaper. Barkley, Eckler, Elliott, like Chubb. Those are guys I'm going to be looking at.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do like Delvin Cook though, at his price at $8,400. He burnt me last week, so I'm sure he burnt a lot of people last week, but he's going against the Lions defense, who isn't very good. They have a high implied team total. If he gets a lot of the carries, I think that he's going to be right back to where he was before as one of the best fantasy running backs there is on the slate. So I do like Cook in this price range quite a bit. If we keep going down here, we have Aaron Jones at 7,900, and then the only other players that drop down to the $7,000 range are Aaron Jones at 79, Eckler at 76, Barkley at 73, and Zeke at 7,000. AK, who is your preference in the $7,000 range if you have one?
Zeke. I think he's really the only one out of those four I really want to play this week. The other guys are either banged up or going against a good defense.
I know, James, you just mentioned a bunch of these names. Do you have a preference between like a Zeke and a Barkley in the same game? Because I think I'm also on Zeke.
I was going to ask you guys what you thought about Zeke versus Barkley. I think that's a big question that a lot of people are going to ask them. I think a lot of people look at Barkley as probably the better play because he's going to catch more passes. So you're going to get those PPR points, but with the $300 isn't a lot of savings. So I'm probably going to put it this way. If I have the money, I think I'm going to spend up and put Barkley in. If I'm looking for just any kind of savings, I'm going to plug Elliott in and I'm not going to feel bad about it. And I think Elliott's a good play too. I think there's a positive correlation with the Cowboys defense. I think playing the running back with the defense is always a positive correlation. You think about it, Dallas could get up big early and just kind of run the ball with Elliott, and the Giants are really playing from behind, so that could force turnovers, sacks, things like that. So it's really going to depend on how my lineup's shaking, but I think both are solid plays.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then I think there's another really solid play in this next range, which starts at Najee Harris at 6,900, drops all the way down to James Robinson at 6,000. I love Nick Chubb at $6,700. I think that the Chargers' weakness on defense is the run game. I think after how we saw Baker play last week, they're going to go back to really relying on that run game. And I don't think that Kareem Hunt is a bad play at $5,800 either. I think that, James, you talked about playing both of these guys, and
I want to every week.
I like them both. I like them both again this week.
Yeah, I'd have to look into. I don't know a lot about the Chargers defense, and Chubb had a quiet 100-yard game last week. I don't think Hunt, or no, did Hunt score last week? Or I'm having a hard time remembering. I like the guys a little bit higher in price, a little bit more than Chubb this week. But again, those Browns running backs they're just so hard to get away from, especially Hunt, who's going to catch those passes.
Hunt did score. He had 14 carries, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Two catches, 17 yards off of 4 targets. So, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with Hunt. Like, this is his game logs for the last, for the first 4 weeks. 6 carries, 13 carries, 10 carries, 14 carries, 3 targets, 1 target, 7 targets, 4 targets. He's got 3 touchdowns, 1 in 3 of the 4 games. So, like, he's going to get work. And at $5,800, this is a Chargers defense that just gave up 100 yards rushing on the ground to the Chiefs, who the Chiefs aren't a huge rushing team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire did it on 14 carries. Like I said, it's the weakness of the team, so I do like it. AK, do you have a preference in this range of anybody in the 6,000s?
I was kind of looking towards Najee Harris. The Denver defense scares me a little bit, and Pittsburgh has no offensive line, but he gets so many touches, and he's been getting more and more targets. I mean, 2 weeks ago, he had like 15 targets out of the backfield. So Big Ben can't really push the ball downfield, so I'm liking these short little passes to Harris, and I think 6,900 is the most I'd pay for him, but I kind of like him this week.
He's forever going to be in that upper $6,000 range. He's just going to be locked there all season.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I know I can't remember if we talked about this as a stack you liked already, James, as a big bring back, or if it was before we jumped on, but we talked about that Viking stack with the bring back of DeAndre Swift. He's in this range. I like DeAndre Swift a lot again this week, James. What about you?
He's the only guy I'd want to play from the Detroit offense. Hawkinson's just too, I think he's priced too high for what, there's just too much inconsistency. I think teams look to take him away out of the passing game. Swift is just a PPR monster this year. He's getting rushing touchdowns. Jamal Williams, I don't think saw a single target last week, which is kind of shocking because he's always been kind of that passing down back, getting a lot of those catches. And last week they just used him to run. So a lot of those passes are swinging back to Swift. So I love him as a play this week.
I'm right there with you on that one. If we keep going down, David Montgomery starts at 5,900. He is obviously out. His replacement is in this price range as well. It's Damien Williams. He is 5,600. And he kind of seems like he's going to be the chalk of the week. I guess I'll ask you both. AK, are you going to play Damien Williams?
No, he's just too chalky, and I'm just going to fade him. Hopefully Chicago gets shut down.
James?
Yeah, I probably won't work him in unless I'm in a pinch, but I think there are probably cheaper running backs I can get into a lineup, and I feel like that's the position I'm going to be in, is to have to spend down a little bit more. So yeah, I don't think he's a guy I'm going to be working in.
Well, I'll tell you, there's two guys in this pricing range, and we already mentioned one. One of them is Damien Harris, $5,500 going against the Houston Texans. I think he's in a smash spot. And then the other one is Leonard Fournette at 5,200, coming off of a 20 carry, 5 target game. He has 7, 4, 3, and 5 targets in the first 4 games. Going against this Dolphins defense, the Dolphins defense has good corners. I could see them trying to, run the ball a little bit here and throw to the slot and Chris Godwin. I think Brady's kind of an interesting play as well, just because he's so smart. He'll utilize the tight ends. He'll utilize the slot guys. He'll stay away from Xavier Howard, I think, and still be able to score quite a few points. And he's a big favorite in that game too. So I like Leonard Fournette as well. AK, do you have anybody you like in this $5,000 range?
I liked Leonard Fournette, and you kind of said everything I liked about him. Other than that, there's not really anyone I'd like cheaper than him.
James, what about you? Any of the backs here? Any cheap guys that you like?
None really below that. If I'm looking for a really, really cheap play, like I'm scraping from the bottom of the barrel, I would probably look to Brandon Bolden for New England. He's the James White now. Played about a third of the snaps last week, and I think he only ran the ball once, but caught 5 balls for like 50 yards. So if you're looking for, 10, 11 points, you might be able to get that from him this week. He's kind of that pass catching back now. I think Belichick trusts him. JJ Taylor came in and fumbled the ball and minimal touches last week, so I don't know that we're going to see a lot of him going forward. And that's just kind of how Belichick operates. So I think Bolden's an okay play if you need somebody that's really, really cheap.
I was going to ask you guys, if Mixon's out, is Samaje Perine at 4,000 even worth playing, or do you see the Bengals really trying to go and running back by committee and kind of abandon the run game?
I mean, at $4,000,
yeah, that's not bad at all.
If you think that he's going to be part of this offense, which he's going to, somebody's got to get carries. They've already shown that they trust him, where he was getting, some touches, not a lot, but he was getting minimal touches before. I don't think it's a terrible play at all on his price tag. If he falls in the end zone, gets 4 or 5 catches, 10 to 14 carries, that's a pretty good spot for $4,000, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to wide receiver. Most expensive wide receiver on the board, Mr. Devonte Adams, in that Green Bay Cincy game we were just talking about, $8,200. And then the rest of the guys above 7,000, Debo, Mike Williams, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, D-Hop, and Justin Jefferson. I do like Justin Jefferson because of that Minnesota game that we were talking about. I don't think that you can ever go wrong with Devonte Adams. And that's kind of where my preference would be. The Debo Samuel thing is very interesting because he's been on a tear the past two, really since the beginning of the year, 12, 8, 10, and 12 targets. It's just crazy to see him at that price tag, I guess. Any preference with these high-priced receivers, James?
I like Jefferson. I think he's getting hot on that offense. I think he got off to a slow start, so I think we're starting to see his price kind of get to where it probably should be. But I like him in a Cousins stack with that Swift ring back, like we talked about earlier. I think Hopkins is due for a bounce back game. He's been I feel like it's been like every other week he produces. So I had the off week last week, and then he's got a very poor San Francisco secondary coming up. So I like that matchup. You said you had kind of wanted to stack or play Kyler. I know it's an expensive stack, but I think those two guys are gonna have a good game.
Yeah, I don't mind that call at all. If you keep going down the range, 6,800 down to 6,000, all the way down to 6,000 is Odell Beckham, who just threw big nothing out there for everybody, including me. And that range goes all the way up to Mike Evans at 6,800. In this range includes the guys that we were talking about, like CeeDee Lamb at 6,200, and Amari Cooper at 6,100. AK, who is your preference of guys in this price range? Because there's some pretty interesting names in here.
I think CeeDee Lamb at 6,200. I know he laid an egg last week, but it's hard to get away from CeeDee Lamb. He's so talented, and at that price point, going against the Giants defense, it's pretty hard to get away from. And the other guy I'm looking at is Brandon Cooks, because he gets 70% of the targets. But going against Bill Belichick's, I think he knows that Brandon Cook's their only weapon, so that kind of worries me a little bit. But I like those two guys at 61 and 62.
James, does Adam Thielen do anything for you in that Minnesota stack, or are you just going to focus on Justin Jefferson?
Probably just Jefferson. This range is so I feel like everyone in this range either didn't play last week or just so underproduced, excluding Deontay Johnson. But a lot of these names here, like AK, I think CeeDee Lamb's a great play this week. I think people, what do you have, 2 catches for like 10 or 11 yards last week? Like, people are going to be burned by that.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to play him. I think CeeDee Lamb's probably one of my favorite plays in this price range.
Yeah, I honestly might go back to Odell Beckham. Potentially, I don't know if I can do it. I do like the Chargers secondary is good, but he did still have 7 targets. He just only caught 2 passes for 27 yards. So I feel like he could be pretty low owned. I might go back there as a flyer. I'm not sure yet. If we keep going down in price, Devonte Smith is $5,900. Then he goes all the way down to Jarvis Landry, who is on IR, Robbie Anderson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and T. Higgins, all at $5,000. But this price includes guys like AJ Green, who's coming off of a big week, Antonio Brown, Tyler Boyd coming off of a big week, who I played, who had an 11 target, 9 catch game. James, any preference for guys in this range?
I love the Bengals players with Jair Alexander out this week. I just think Burrow's going to be chucking the ball. So I love T. Higgins at 5,000. I just hope this has like Brandon Ayuk from last week at 5,000, like all over it. I feel like everyone he's going to be that guy that I feel like gets steamed. So I'm a little nervous about that. But I like him and Jamar Chase.
Yeah, including OBJ, the other guy that kind of burnt me last week was Cortland Sutton, who I liked a lot. And he also had 8 targets, but only 3 catches. If we find out word that Teddy Bridgewater is going to play, I like him a lot more. Obviously tough matchup with Pittsburgh's defense, but I'm not too worried about that. I think Sutton's a really good play. AK, your boys, James just mentioned them, the Bengal boys. Are you on those guys? I know you had mentioned kind of this Mac Jones thing, or are you going to a guy like Jacoby Myers to stack him up with Mac?
I love a lot of receivers in this range. I could build all 3 receivers from this range, to be quite honest with you, with Jacoby Myers, Jamar Chase. I liked Sutton again this week, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. So yeah, I love all the Bengals guys, and I really like Jacoby Myers. He gets a lot of targets, and the Texans defense is atrocious.
Yeah, that is fair. Below 5,000, James, a lot of good names in here. LaVisca, $4,800. We talked about him with the Lawrence stack, 10, 7, 4, 7 targets this year. He's kind of the deep shot guy now that DJ Chark has been injured and on IR. You got Christian Kirk, another Cardinal guy who's kind of been on and off. Darnell Mooney coming off of a big 7 target, 5 catch, 125-yard game. Tim Patrick, who I think is pretty interesting. Brandon Ayuk, who kind of threw a dud out last week and his price dropped 500. Anybody that you like down here in this cheap range, you can keep going down if you like anybody.
Yeah, I'm scrolling. I like Visca. I do worry about his popularity this week with a big game. Jalen Waddle's a name I'm going to look at against a very bad Tampa secondary. Miami's going to have to throw, I think, to stay competitive in this game. So I think he's a name I may look at that I don't think is going to have high ownership. Mooney, I feel like his ownership is going to be up from last week based on the game that he just had, but he's a fine play, I think. Tim Patrick burned me last week. I had him in a cash lineup and that killed me. So I don't know that I can go back to him. Ayuk is tempting, those guys that, I guess similar to Tim Patrick that put up stinkers, where the odds of them doing that 2 weeks in a row, and when their prices decrease, it's tempting to throw them back in. So I'll give those guys some thought, but in this range, I think Visca and Waddle are probably my 2 favorites.
AK, any cheap guys even below that you like?
I wish I one of these weeks I'm gonna be able to pronounce his name correctly. Rondale Moore.
Yeah.
Did I get Rondale Moore?
Yeah, not Ronaldo,
Yeah.
like I think you called him earlier.
Yeah. Rondale Moore. We kind of talked about it earlier. He's just, if you're playing Kyler and you're looking for a one-off, or not a one-off, but like a cheap stack with him, it's worth throwing in there, 4,600, because if he goes off, you're going to have a huge game. And if not, yeah, it's going to stink, but 4,600, you can kind of get away with it. So.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I'll give you one really cheapy. Josh Reynolds, $3,300. If AJ Brown and Julio are both out again, he had 9 targets against the Jets. They have the Jags. I said I kind of like Tannehill. He's an interesting one, and man, that's a pretty cheap stack that you can start with. Even you can bring it back with LaVisca if you wanted to go to the Tannehill route, anyways. So,
when is Terrence Marshall going to become a thing?
Never.
He's on the field so much. I don't know. I really don't. I really thought he would be more productive than this. I mean, his best game, arguably, I guess, was the Houston game where he had 4 catches for 48 yards. So I don't know. It's literally just DJ Moore, because it's not like Robbie Anderson is doing anything either, right?
Yeah. I was right. The Texans did cut Anthony Miller too, while we're kind of dumpster diving down here in the cheap wide receivers. So they traded a 5th round pick to bring him in and have him score a touchdown 2 weeks ago, and then just cut him.
What is going on in Houston?
The one guy I wanted to ask you guys about is Randall Cobb. With MVS being out and him getting back in the groove with Rodgers, do you think he's worth playing at 4,000, or was last week kind of a flash in the pan week?
I mean, he did get 6 targets, right?
Yeah,
I think he'll be a very popular play.
Yeah, everybody saw him score 2 touchdowns. I mean, I still, if you're going to that offense, I like it just to be Rodgers, Devontae, Aaron Jones. That's pretty much it.
I think if you're desperate and you want to play somebody at that range, I think he's a fairly safe play. But I think where people have gotten really good is identifying like plays at the $32,000 to $4,000 range, and that's what happened last week with Nick Westbrook-Akine and Will Dissly last week too. I feel like just those cheap punt plays are starting to become not contrarian. They're actually very popular, and they don't help you stand out.
Yeah, and the thing is, DK really hasn't given you much pricing wise to give you those low cheap guys. So.
No.
All right, let's move on to tight end. Darren Waller, $7,300, most expensive on the board. Honestly, to me, I'm going to find ways to get up to him. I think he's by far the best play on the board. Other than that, I don't mind Noah Fant, who had a really big game last week, but he's been pretty good with his targets, 8, 6, 3, and 10 in his 4 games. Mike Gesicki at 4,200 is also a guy that I've looked at a little bit. I know that's James's boy, who just constantly burnt him last year. And then again, if if these receivers for the Titans are out, Anthony Ferkster, old Ferk Daddy, is an interesting play to me. But tight end is just a wasteland like usual. So I think Waller might be my priority in a lot of these lineups. James, thoughts?
Yeah, I hate spending up that much, but I think like last week with Kelsey, he burned us, but he very easily could have had a 30-point game, and there just aren't that many other names like on the slate that can do that. And I think Waller is Kelsey this week, where he can have a 30-point game, and if you cram him in, I think that's putting you ahead of that many more people. So I think that's a good play. I like Dallas Goedert. I think his price is a little bit high at 51, but the tight ends there in Philly seem to be targeted pretty frequently. So he's a name I like too.
AK, what about you?
There's 2 guys I like at the $3,300 range. Actually, one's 3,200, but so there's 3 guys I like: Jonnu Smith, Cameron Brate, and Evan Ingram. All of them had 6 targets last week. You're kind of banking on them scoring a touchdown, but at 3,300, if they do find the end zone, you're going to make out pretty well.
Yeah, I don't mind any of those calls. Like I said, tight end's tough. I think that Waller's my priority this week, though. Defensively, it's so crazy because every single week it's something different. A lot of times people just try to put in the cheapest. That's what I usually do. Looking at these defenses, I mean, the Patriots is at $4,900, but there's no way I could pay that much for that defense. I don't even know of the cheap defenses. Maybe Washington at 2,300, which is, they've kind of disappointed everybody. Jameis is always good for a couple turnovers or something. AK, what are your thoughts on defense?
I was going to go with Washington again this week. I think I've played them every week this year, and every week they're getting cheaper. So it's kind of like the reverse martingale effect of gambling. Like, instead of doubling up when you lose, I'm actually getting a cheaper price when I lose. So one of these weeks they're going to hit, and I'm counting on Winston to have his LASIK go.
There you go. Perfect.
Washington is going to be in my cash lineup for sure for the savings, but I think in tournament they're going to be really, really chalky. Like, I think everyone's going to play Washington or want to play Washington in tournament. So I'll probably spend up a little bit. I'm going to look at Dallas at 2,800. Daniel Jones is due for one of those dud games, and Dallas defense has been pretty hot. So I'm going to try to find a way to spend up a little bit more on their defense.
All right, guys.
I was going to say, can you convince yourself at all to bet 4,900 against the Texans being that bad?
No, I can't justify spending that much on the defense. I really can't. I feel like you give up too many other projected points in other positions if you're spending 4,900 on a defense.
I was just thinking Bill Belichick, rookie quarterback, on a god awful team.
For sure, there's no question. But like, you're thinking, say you use Washington, that's a $2,600 defense or change in defense. Where if you have that extra $2,600, you're going from a guy like Laviska Shenault to a guy that is $7,300 or $7,400 like Terry McLaurin. Like, that's the difference to me. Now, Laviska we like, McLaurin we like, but that's the price range.
Yeah.
You're going from Marquez Callaway at $4,700 to Mike Williams at $7,200. Like, that's a massive difference to me.
Patriots would pair well with a Damien Harris play where you're spending down a little bit at running back, and then maybe a Trevor Lawrence, or if you're looking at Justin Fields at quarterback. Like, I think you can make those lineups work, but like Justin says, you're just sacrificing so much.
Yeah. All right, let's give us your favorite stack before we get out of here, and then we'll let everybody go. James, what's your favorite stack?
Man, I think I'm gonna talk myself into a Dak Prescott, CD Lamb, Saquon Barkley stack. That's where I'm at as of Wednesday night.
I like it. AK?
I have two. I'm sorry. I'm going with.
You're out. You're done.
You're a cheater.
I did two last week too, but I'm going Trevor Lawrence, Shenault, and Derrick Henry, and then I'm going Burrow, any Bengals receiver, and Adams.
I think I'm gonna go with.
You don't get all of the receivers when you say that. You know that, right? Like,
No, I don't care which one. I don't care which one you pick with it. I think all three.
like I want both Eagles tight ends, but I can't just like.
Yeah, they
get
come
them
counts as one spot though.
Yeah.
I'm just drafting an offense.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, I'm gonna go. I think I've talked myself into this Ryan Tannehill stack as a contrarian play, whether they have AJ Brown, Julio or not. And if they have one, then I'll definitely jam him in. But Ferkser or Reynolds or something like that, I think it's a pretty interesting stack, and it gives you some leverage on all the Derrick Henry lineups. So we'll go with that.
Love it.
Love it. Let's win some motherfucking money. You can find us on Twitter at Ballin Over, at Fitchy24, at Kenny Truelove. I'm at JDiz1617. I'll have my favorite DFS plays out as I do every single week this Friday. Make sure you check that out. Check out our betting show as well. In the comment, tell us who's your favorite stack. We appreciate everybody being here. Good luck this week. Talk to you later.